Good afternoon to you and welcome to the live proceedings of the Senate. This being an afternoon sitting of the Senate on the February 13th. The year is 2024. This is sort of a resumption of business for senators after a 2-month break, usually called a long recess. And when members of the Senate will be resuming this afternoon, they will be embarking on the third session. Previously, last year, they were on the third session, and upon the lapse of the parliamentary year, members of parliament now will be transacting business under the third session. The first business that senators will be conducting this afternoon is the approval of senators to serve in the Senate Business Committee. This is a motion that will be moved by the Senate leader of the majority party, Senator Aaron Cheriot, that pursuant to standing orders number 190 and 199 subsection 3 of the Senate do approve the senators nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee for the third session, and in addition to the Speaker of the Senate, who pursuant to standing orders number 190 subsection 1 shall be the chairperson of the committee, as well as the Senate majority leader, the Senate minority leader, and the Senate whip, as well as the Senate majority whip. There are a total number of 7 senators proposed to sit in the Senate Business Committee. They are the Senator for Mandera County, Senator Ali Ibrahim Roba, the Senator for Nairobi County, Senator Edwin Sifuna, nominated Senator Veronica Maina, who previously, and will be seeing under that parliament, that session. She happens to equally be a member of the Speaker's panel, as well as Senator Wakili Hilary Sigei Kiprotich, nominated Senator Tabitha Mutinda, and Senator for Machakos County, Senator Agnes Kavindu, as well as the Senator for Mombasa County, Senator Mohamed Faki. Immediately, the Speaker takes his position to preside over the business of the Senate this afternoon. There will be no any other business handled today before that committee is constituted. And we will be expecting to see the Senate majority leader, that is Senator Aaron Cheriot, give a notice of a motion to approve the senators to serve in the Senate Business Committee. The approval of the 7 senators are pursuant to standing orders number 190, 199, subsection 3 of the Senate, as well as standing order number 190, subsection 1. If you're just joining us, the business of the Senate is just about to commence. Senators already in the chamber. The mace carried by the Sergeant-at-Arms has made its way into the chamber this afternoon, and the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Kingi, is the Speaker presiding over the business of the Senate this afternoon. Allow me to hand you over for this live broadcast brought to you by KBC in partnership with the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. Enjoy your viewing and good afternoon.
Abundant favor and blessings, as your servants whom you've been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you've committed to our charge. Amen. Clerk, do we have quorum? Okay, you may proceed to call the first order, please.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Now, honorable senators, it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the third session of the Senate. I take this opportunity to also wish honorable senators a happy and prosperous 2024. I trust that during the recess, you had the opportunity to reconnect with your constituents, listen to their concerns and challenges, and assess the opportunities available in our counties. From these interactions, I have no doubt that you'll endeavor to develop our legislative interventions for addressing emerging issues. In this respect, my office, and indeed that of the Clerk of the Senate, is available to honorable senators to assist them effectively in discharging their constitutional mandate. I also trust that during the recess, honorable senators took time off to rest, rejuvenate, and spend time with families and friends over the Christmas and New Year festivities. Honorable senators, during the second session, the Senate participated in 2 critical events that play an immense role in protecting and upholding the devolved governance structure in Kenya. These were the first biannual devolution conference that took place from the 15th to the 19th of August 2023 in Eldoret, was in Gishu County, and the Senate Mashinani, held from the 25th to the 29th September 2023 in Lodwar, Turkana County. The lessons learned from these 2 events continue to shape the discourse on how the Senate undertakes its mandate. The Senate must therefore undertake an introspection in relation to the lessons learned and devise strategies, including legislative interventions, to address pertinent issues that arose from the 2 events. I therefore urge standing committees to critically interrogate the communique from the devolution conference and the experiences from the Senate Mashinani in Turkana County, and play a proactive role in the opportunities available and finding solutions to the challenges observed. Honorable senators, as we begin the third session, it is important to reflect on the business transacted in the second session. 11 bills were considered and enacted into law. Out of these, 5 were Senate bills and 6 were National Assembly bills. By the end of the second session, 22 petitions were concluded by the respective standing committees, 61 substantive motions on diverse matters were adopted, 254 statements pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 were concluded by the respective committees, while 52 questions were responded to by the relevant cabinet secretaries. From the foregoing, my attention is drawn to the length of time in which bills are considered in the Senate. There are currently 44 bills pending conclusion in the Senate, out of which 9 are National Assembly bills and 35 are Senate bills. On the other hand, there are 8 Senate bills pending conclusion in the National Assembly. These illustrate the work cut out for the Senate in this session. For this reason, therefore, we must change our strategy to ensure that legislative business is expedited in the third session. I call upon the Senate leadership to lead us in this respect. With the same breath, I also urge chairpersons of committees to hasten consideration of pending business in the respective committees and table the reports thereon pursuant to the standing orders. I wish to inform honorable senators that as per the standing parliamentary practice, motions that are not concluded by the end of second session are deemed to have lapsed. In view of this, senators wishing to pursue the motions will have to file them afresh. Similar to motions, questions that had not been responded to by the end of the second session also lapsed, and senators wishing to pursue them will be required to file the questions afresh. Now, honorable senators, as has been the tradition at the commencement of every new session, the Senate will this week receive the budget policy statement, the draft division of revenue bill, the draft account allocation of revenue bill, and the draft County Government's Additional Allocations Bill. As we consider these financial instruments, our cardinal duty must be to safeguard the interests of counties and their governments as enshrined in Article 96 of the Constitution. Honorable Senators, Honorable Senators, I wish to state that this is an important session which will offer Honorable Senators an opportunity to demonstrate your commitment to fulfilling the responsibilities bestowed upon you by the Constitution. This will call for Honorable Senators to prioritize attendance and active participation in the Chamber. I'm confident that the deliberations of this session will be marked by a spirit of collaboration, mutual respect, and a steadfast commitment to fulfilling our constitutional mandate. In conclusion, and in established parliamentary practice, pursuant to Standing Order 190, the Senate Majority Leader will shortly give a notice of motion for approval of senators to serve in the Senate Business Committee for the third session. This will be the only business on the order paper for the day, after which, dispensing with the motion, the Senate will adjourn until tomorrow, Wednesday, 14th of February, 2024 at 9:30 a.m. I thank you and wish you, Honorable Senators, a fruitful session. Thank you. Next order, clerk.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to give notice of the following motion, which is the approval of senators to serve in the Senate Business Committee, that pursuant to Standing Order number 190 and 199.3, the Senate approves the following senators nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee for the third session, in addition to the Speaker of the Senate, who pursuant to Standing Order number 191 shall be the chairperson of the committee: the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip, the Senate Minority Whip. 1, Senator Robert Ali Ibrahim. 2, Senator Edwin Sifuna. 3, Senator Veronica Maina. 4, Senator Wakili Hilary Kiprotich Sigei. 5, Senator Maureen Tabitha Mutinda. 6, Senator Agnes Kavindu Budhama. 7, Senator Mwenyehaji Faki. I thank you.
Order number 7, questions and statements. Order number 8, motion.
Majority Leader, you may move your motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move the following motion, which is the approval of the senators to serve in the Senate Business Committee, that pursuant to Standing Orders number 190 and 199.3, the Senate approves the following senators nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee for the third session, in addition to the Speaker of the Senate, who pursuant to Standing Order number 191A shall be the chairperson of the committee: the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip, the Senate Minority Whip, and the Senate Minority Whip. 1, Senator Ali Roba Ibrahim. 2, Senator Edwin Sifuna. 3, Senator Veronica Maina. 4, Senator Wakili Hilary Sigei. 5, Senator Tabitha Mutinda. 6, Senator Agnes Kavindu Mudhama. 7, Senator Mwenyehaji Faki. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a procedural motion at the beginning of every session of Parliament, where this particular committee will soon after, actually we are done with its approval, sit to deliberate and set the agenda for the week and the days that are coming forward in this session, Mr. Speaker. It's one of the most important committees of the House, Mr. Speaker, given that it is a committee that determines the business of the House and so many other matters that come, including the calendar of the House, Mr. Speaker, jointly. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want first of all to welcome my colleagues back to the House this session. If it's not too late, to wish them a happy new year, as many of them either we haven't met or seen each other in this new year, Mr. Speaker, but do appreciate that in the spirit of the guidance of the communication from the chairperson, that this is a new session, that there are many things which we carry on from the past, but also we approach this session with a new spirit and determination, knowing that the Constitution has granted us power to cement and guide the country into establishing a Senate that is respectable, a Senate, Mr. Speaker, that Kenyans can be proud of in all the transactions and the business that comes before us. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is my sincere hope that our colleagues, all our colleagues gathered in this House this afternoon, will quickly dispense of this business so that the SBC can convene immediately after in quick succession and consider the business of the coming days and so many other things that are before it. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to, with those very few remarks, I beg to move and request that the leader of the minority in the Senate does second the motion. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Asante, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, kitu cha kwanza nataka kuungana na wewe kwa karibisha ndugu zetu maseneta kwa mwaka huu. Kwa hiyo nawatakia kila laheri katika mwaka ambao utakuwa na fanaka nyingi tunavyoomba na ukarimu. Bwana Spika, cha kwanza ni kwamba huu utakuwa mhula wetu wa 3. Na wale masenators ambao wamechaguliwa kuweza kuketi katika kamati hii kama kamati ya kwanza ya katika zile kamati zote za bunge. Kwanza katika ile list ni kwamba wale maseneta ambao walikuwako katika wakati ule mwingine wa muhula wa 2 ndio wako pale pale, hakuna mmoja aliyetolewa ama wale waliotolewa, wote wako sawa. Bwana Spika, nataka kusema kwamba maseneta hawa ni maseneta wako na ujuzi sana. Kwa hiyo mimi niko na imani ya kwamba tutalengesha vile inavyotakana kuenda kisawasawa kulingana na biashara yetu ya Senate katika mikutano na katika hali ya kuendesha Senate vile itakapokuwa inaenda. Bwana Spika, ninayo imani ya kwamba wakati huu tutakuwa na wakati mchangamfu sana katika bunge letu la Senate. Kwa hayo machache, asante Bwana Spika.
Honorable Senators, now proceed to propose the question. That pursuant to Standing Orders 190 and 199.3, the Senate approves the following senators nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee for the 3rd session, in addition to the Speaker of the Senate, who, pursuant to Standing Order 191, shall be the chairperson of the committee, the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip, and the Senate Minority Whip. 1, Senator Roba Ali Ibrahim EGH, MP, Senator Edwin Sifuna, MP, Senator Veronica Maina, MP, Senator Wakili Hilary Kiprotich Sigei, MP, Senator Maureen Tabitha Mutinda, MP, Senator Agnes Kavindu Muthama, MP, and Senator Munyehaji Faki CBS, MP. Honorable Senators, you may now proceed to make your brief comments, contribution to this motion, starting with Senator Okenyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I also want to take this moment to welcome my colleagues after the long recess. I'm looking forward to a very vibrant session, and from the membership of the Business Committee, I know we are going to do good work. In the past sessions, important matters were prioritized first. I'm looking forward to the same happening this time, and more legislative works being processed in this House. So, Mr. Speaker, that's what I just have to say. I'm happy that I'm healthy and back in full swing, hoping to prosecute youth and women matters constructively so that we can change the path of leadership in this country. Thank you.
Senator Onyonka, Richard.
It's not working.
Microphone is on, Senator. You can proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I would like to welcome my colleagues back to the House and back from a country where many of us have been staying. Mr. Speaker, as many of my colleagues will realize, that the issues in this country are weighty. They expect our intervention, and they expect for us to maybe offer some solutions to these problems. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that I belong to this House, and for the past year, I have actually quite learned a lot, and I believe that I should be able to come here and participate fully to make sure that we make sure our country becomes better. Finally, Mr. Speaker, once again, I would want this House to sit down and interrogate the matters political that are happening, because they affect our major responsibility, and that is devolution. Mr. Speaker, I would like to inform the House that what has just happened in Kisii is that the County Assembly has just impeached the Deputy Governor. You realize we handled the CIR Deputy Governor's matter, and many issues are actually taking place.
Order, honorable senators. What is so funny about a deputy governor being impeached? Unless there's something that I'm not aware.
Mr. Speaker, even me, I'm shocked because I saw my sister laughing quite much. I didn't know why you laughed. Oh, things are happening. Oh, Happy New Year for the impeachment. So, Mr. Speaker, to finish, I want to say that I think my colleagues here, we need to look and begin to interrogate the issues affecting the administration of governance in our counties, because there is seriously a big problem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this small opportunity.
Senator Kathuri Murungi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. Also, I want to take this opportunity to welcome my colleagues back to the Senate dance session. Mr. Speaker, the team that has been laid out, comprising of you as the chair of the SBC and the entire team, personally, I want to say that since we started, I have a lot of confidence with the team, which you have learned for the 2 sessions. And Mr. Speaker, you have learned as well as the Senate. So far, so good. So, Mr. Speaker, when we end our retreat last week, liaison committee retreat, some issues were raised by the members that some business is stalling on the order paper for quite some time. So this session, Mr. Speaker, as SBC, maybe we'll look at possibility that we'll be dispensing of the bills, the motions, so that we can be able to learn. Mr. Speaker, you remember the last 2 sessions, we have been taking a lot of time on statements. So, Mr. Speaker, as one of your panelists, maybe we'll be able to see the best way we can dispense of some of these business, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, devolution is there with us, and it is there to stay. So this time I wish my colleague senators, any issues coming from the counties, let us take time to critically look at the issues raised by members of County Assembly, like now the issue in Kisii. Let us approach issues on devolution with a very sober mind. Let us analyze the issues brought to this House in a bipartisan way, and in a way that will be able to promote devolution in our counties and to make sure that counties work. Because, Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of issues in different counties, and we really need to move with speed. Especially, I also want to encourage the Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations. That committee should be very, very active within to look at the matters that are being raised all the time by the county assemblies, by the counties themselves, so that those county governments can work. Even before these issues are brought to the Senate through impeachment, I wish to encourage the Devolution Committee to ensure that they are proactive and they get issues even before they are brought to the Senate. They will visit the counties and come up with a report that we can discuss even before these issues are raised in this floor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I wish all of us a very successful third session of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Boy, Juma Boy.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika na mimi kunipatia fursa hii. Kwanza napenda kusema kwamba kutakia kila mtu maseneta wenzangu mwaka mpya heri pamoja, kwa sababu tumeenda likizo ndefu sana Mheshimiwa Spika mashinani kuona wananchi wetu, kutatua shida zetu za katika kaunti zetu. Pili, Mheshimiwa Spika, hawa waliochaguliwa katika hii Senate Business Committee ni maseneta ambao wamebobea sana, mawakili wako humo ndani na wengine ambao walikuwa ni senior senators. Kwa hivyo nina imani kwamba katika kipindi hichi ambacho tumerudi safari hii tutaweza kujadili mambo mengi sana ambayo itaweza kutusaidia na kufanikia katika watu wetu, hususan katika mambo ya county sana. Kwa hivyo nawasihi wa seneta wenzangu ili tuweze kuhudhuria kikao kwa wingi sana kwa kipindi hichi sana, kwa sababu kuna jukumu letu kubwa kama waseneta tuweze kujumuika kusaidia county zetu na kuhakikisha kwamba tuweze kuleta miswada muhimu sana ambayo itasaidia kaunti zetu. Kwa hivyo asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na pia naunga mkono sana. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Mungatana.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for giving me the opportunity also to say welcome to all our members. Mr. Speaker, there are just two quick points I wanted to make. The first one, the House Business Committee, of course, I support it. But, Mr. Speaker, the main issue that the House Business Committee is supposed to handle is to plan for us the business of the House. Now, Mr. Speaker, as you have said, legislation is the main thing. The question I wanted to say, the point I wanted to say, and Mr. Speaker, I know the whole House leadership here is listening, is that we have passed legislation here. And this legislation is supposed to go to the National Assembly to be processed so that it is signed into law. Mr. Speaker, I was going to request, beg, and cajole the House Business Committee to make a follow-up, even after you have planned for us and the law has been passed here. What happens in the National Assembly? Mr. Speaker, I wanted to say that it is taking too long in the National Assembly to process the bills that have been passed by Senate. It is taking too long. And even when we follow up, Mr. Speaker, you are dealing with an institution on the other hand. So I was going to ask during this session that the House Business Committee for the session, and I know the leadership is listening to me, that they will also take the bother, even after we have passed, to find out what the other side are doing. Because when we follow up on our own, Mr. Speaker, it becomes complicated. And I know what I'm talking about because I've got bills that have gone to the National Assembly and they are stuck there. They are not moving, Mr. Speaker. So we would like the House Business Committee to add on its responsibility how we follow up the bills that go the other side. Equally, Mr. Speaker, which is the second and final point I want to make. Mr. Speaker, we have had a challenge with cabinet secretaries who have failed to honor appearances before this Senate. We would like, Mr. Speaker, the majority leader, when he's reading the business of the House for the next week, the way he does, to also include which ministers, Mr. Speaker, have not been able to honor, so that we have, this House Business Committee, Mr. Speaker, should follow as an institution on ministers and cabinet secretaries who don't take the business of this house as we want them to do. We want them to take these matters seriously. So, Mr. Speaker, we would want in this session, when we put the questions to them, they actually follow it up, and they appear when we want them to come here. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion. Thank you.
Senator Mogeni.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, sir, I begin by wishing you and my colleague senators a Happy New Year 2024, and thank the Almighty God that we all cross the year and we are here to begin a business of the third session. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I also want to take this opportunity on my behalf and on behalf of the people of the County of Nyamira to pass my heartfelt condolences to the family of this great Kenyan who passed on, Kevin Kiptum, who passed on, I think 2 days ago, one of the greatest sons that this country has ever produced at 24. Somebody is saying actually the greatest. The Speaker, at 24, that young man was able to break the marathon record. We join the people of Elgeyo Marakwet and Kenyans at large, people from the sporting fraternity, to pass our heartfelt condolences to the widow, to the 2 young children, to Mzee Cheruyot and the mother. May the Almighty God condole the family, and may the Almighty God rest the soul of Kevin Kiptum in eternal peace. Mr. Speaker, I support the membership of this House Business Committee that has been moved by a majority leader. I'm happy that the membership has largely been retained, and we look forward, Mr. Speaker, to transacting a number of businesses, Mr. Speaker. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that House business will prioritize matters that are hugely of concern to Kenyans. The National Dialogue Committee report. In my county of Nyamira, Mr. Speaker, I have 2 wards that have remained without members of county assembly, close to 8 months now. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that the House Business Committee will give priority, will prioritize the issue of us revisiting the composition of IBC so that the people of Nyamira can get an opportunity to elect MCAs of those 2 wards that remain largely unrepresented. And Mr. Speaker, we want to assure you that we will firmly be behind you. We need to protect devolution. We need to protect the Senate. We need concurrence that gives the Senate an opportunity to have an input in virtually all bills that come to Parliament. The business where oftentimes, Mr. Speaker, bills are dealt with at the National Assembly without the involvement of the Senate should be a thing of the past. We have very good jurisprudence from the Supreme Court, Mr. Speaker, so we need to elevate the stature of this House. Senators now have a lot of presence at the county level. I hope you'll create an opportunity for us to have a retreat where we can get further training so that as we embark on our enhanced presence in counties, we can be trained on now. We can effectively discharge our functions as elected leaders who oversight the work of governors. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, like those who have spoken before me, I wish to tell colleagues, distinguished senators, Happy New Year. And Mr. Speaker, as they say in soccer, you don't change a winning team. You'll notice that the leader of the majority, in constituting this committee, he has basically returned the old team, and because they did very well, there's need for us to allow that continuity because it is a winning team. Having said that, I have only 2 points, Mr. Speaker. The first one is to send my condolences to the family of Kelvin Kiptum, a hero, a sports icon, a living example of what a youth should be. This is a very difficult moment for the family, the youth of this country, and the sporting fraternity. We wish them well. We hope they will overcome the pain. The second point, which is the last one I want to make, Mr. Speaker, is about the importance of this House. Two things have happened when we were on recess, which concerned me. The first, Mr. Speaker, is that in this House we formed a mediation committee, or rather seconded senators to a mediation committee. They joined colleagues from the other House. And while on recess, I saw the chair of the National Assembly Mediation Committee meet governors and make pronouncements informally in social media that they were reaching a solution on the sticking out issues that we had been constituted to perform. It concerned me. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I saw the Council of Governors very active, talking about the division of revenue. Mr. Speaker, I would like to use day one to remind senators that we must never allow a situation whereby it looks like we are either incapable or we are failing on our core business. The Council of Governors, if they care to read the Constitution carefully, they have no role in legislation. In fact, under the Constitution, the only organ that has good power to make decisions that have the force of law is Parliament. So for them to go around giving the impression that they will decide how much money will go to county governments and that they are urging us to ensure that figure X is taken to the counties is to presume that either we don't know what we are doing or they supervise us. It is our core mandate, and we want to ask them to sit on their laurels. We know what we are doing. We are not going to pass any figure because of the opinion of one governor, a group of governors, or all governors, but we shall do it on the express advice, expert advice from the Commission of Revenue Allocation as per the Constitution. And as for the first point I said about mediation, we would like members of the National Assembly, yes, the Constitution gives them the power of money bills, but that does not mean when in a mediation committee, they should run solo and not play as a team with colleagues from this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I forgot to congratulate you. But I think the best is to congratulate you behind the tent because I know you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Bond, if you're done, kindly yield.
Thank you. With those remarks,
Senator Mounds.
I support the bill, the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, the House Business Committee is the engine of the House, and most of the planning and the efficiency of the House will highly depend on them. It's a very well-balanced list, Mr. Speaker, and I support it. Mr. Speaker, having been in the National Assembly for 10 years, I want to confirm what Senator Mugatana said, that all the laws related to devolution must either originate here, and some which touch on finance originate from the National Assembly. A lot of times I sat in the mediation, and some will be successful, but a lot of laws which had been proposed from the Senate for all that period, a lot of them, will fail to, when the House adjourns after 5 years, will automatically lapse or collapse, and dreams will be lost, and sometimes even those senators will not come back. There was a proposal, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that when the House adjourned sine die, there's a way of getting those laws moving on in the event that particular senator does not come back to Senate. And a very important law, like snake bites and things like that, compensation for people with snake bites, all of them disappeared between the two houses. And sometime, Mr. Speaker, what originates from the National Assembly and comes here, we process it as fast as we can. So I think there is a way we should be able to follow up, track, and make it faster. And this team is good for that, so that we make sure that all the laws members propose from here and work very hard, and they become law. From here, they go on all the way to be assigned to law by the president. So I want to support that, and wish all members well in the third session, and also finally pass my apologies and condolences to the family of Kevin. That's a very, very young person who had really, really achieved on top of the world, had gone around the world giving Kenya fame. And I think it will be very important for Ministry of Youth and Sports to consider him having a state funeral. And that is an encouragement to a lot of young people that they can do it, and that they can work very hard even at a very young age and bring fame and success to their country and to themselves. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chiranke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, I want to support the motion, and I think, as my colleagues have said, these are colleagues that have sat in SBC, so there is not much because they have presided several sessions. When you look at Understanding Order 190, Mr. Speaker, on the formation of Senate Business Committee, I think what I want to urge the SBC is to spur and be forefront. They should know that our cardinal call is the protection of devolution, enrichment and nourishment of devolution. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the SBC also not to be a stumbling block, especially in creativeness of members when they want to process bills, motions, and statements. And in any case, they say power belongs to the people. Should they get stuck, they should always have freedom through your office to convene a Kamkunji and maybe seek our wisdom or lack of it in some of the issues that go through, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, secondly, as the bastion of athletics hub in this country, we are saddened with the passing on of one of the icon of athletics and legends, Kevin Kiptum. We continue to commiserate with the families for the tragic loss. I happen to know Kevin Kiptum, Mr. Speaker. You know my track record in the fight for the rights of athletics and sportsmen and women in this country. We have had several sessions, and the Paris Olympics should have been the best in his life, where he has assured us to learn under 2 hours, specifically under 1:59, Mr. Speaker. So we are saddened, and we hope the family finds solace in God, and be assured that as a Senate and as leaders from this country, we shall continue to stand with the family, and I hope the government can give him the state funeral. This is a person, Mr. Speaker, who has already flown a flag across the world, where none of us has never had an opportunity of having that national anthem being sung. But I know there will be many Kevin Kiptum that will rise up, Mr. Speaker, that will continue to inspire. And I think that, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, in the legacy of Kevin Kiptum, Mr. Speaker, is that we should ensure our sportsmen and women get value for what they toil and sweat for in our fields, in our stadiums, in their practices each and every morning, Mr. Speaker. They run so that they can bring glory to this world, to this country, Mr. Speaker. So I hope in the celebration of his life, Mr. Speaker, we should be able, I had prepared an adjournment motion on celebrating his life. I hope SBC will get down to business. I'm not canvassing that they approve, but I know in their wisdom they will approve, Mr. Speaker, so that we can have a a better time to eulogize. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I'm aware that SBC has a role to play. I had one of the members who sat in defunct NADCO, Mr. Speaker, trying to canvass that we should pass the NADCO report because it is going to be unconstitutional. Banisa does not have an MP as died. Some wards in his county do not have an elected MCA. The courts have pronounced itself on this, Mr. Speaker. There is already a selection panel in it. They need to move with speed, reconstitute IEBC, allow those by-elections to be held, Mr. Speaker, and that is how the country will move on. We cannot sit under a tree and imagine that it has the same legal and constitutional effect, Mr. Speaker, to come and try and push us, Mr. Speaker. So I want to assure the country, this is a country rule of law. Mr. Speaker, let the law take its course, Mr. Speaker. And finally, I'm informed that in Kisii, a deputy governor, or is it Nyamira, has been impeached, Mr. Speaker. I want to tell the deputy governor all is well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support the motion.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I think from the onset, Mr. Speaker, I want to support this motion. The senators who've been selected to sit on this committee are people who have done a good job in the first session, and I'm sure they will do a better, an even better job in this session. Mr. Speaker, the House Business Committee is a very, very important committee to this House because it is the front end to the plenary where we sit. And I just want to encourage the House Business Committee that let us prioritize matters which are key to the functioning of this Senate. Mr. Speaker, in the last session, I was disappointed that this House took too long to process the county additional allocation bill. It sat on the order paper for so long. And I thought that this was one bill that should have been given highest level of priority, considering that it was going to unlock funds to our counties. So I just want to encourage that the bills or the motions or the items which are of high priority should actually be given high priority so that we dispense with them. Mr. Speaker, the House Business Committee will also help us to actually help us in implementing Article 96 of the Constitution, which is to protect counties. All the matters that come before us, Mr. Speaker, must actually be weighed against that premise of Article 96 of the Constitution, that the matters which come before us are matters which are going to enhance devolution and not take us back to those days before devolution. Mr. Speaker, I've seen some bills which have appeared on the order paper, which indeed, if you look at the content, they are either having aspects which are unconstitutional or defeat the very purpose of our role under Article 96. So the House Business Committee will depend on you for that purpose. Mr. Speaker, as someone has said, the only institution in this country that has the powers to make laws, it is Parliament. That is National Assembly and the Senate. We are starting to see a trend where laws are made without the involvement of this House. Mr. Speaker, we make laws here either through the bills we process or the delegated legislation that we approve in this House. We want that to go on, and we don't want to see a scenario where laws are made through directives by ministries or by those in authority. The House must rise to the occasion and protect Parliament and protect the integrity of Parliament by ensuring that all laws that are not made by this House are declared null and void. Mr. Speaker, allow me also to pass a message of condolences to the family of Kevin Kiptum, who was a great athlete athlete in this country. But also allow me, Mr. Speaker, while we were away, my good neighbor and my senior brother, Honorable Halwale, lost his long-serving employee by the name Kizito Moi. So I also, on behalf of the senators and being a neighbor, I also say pole to Honorable Halwale for losing his long-serving employee, Mr. Kizito Moi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Gloria Orobo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to wish my fellow colleagues a happy new year and to congratulate the women today for standing up with the women of Kenya by dressing in black, Mr. Speaker. As you know, we have been talking about the issues of femicide, Mr. Speaker, and I am looking forward this session to seeing that the Senate Business Committee will actually prioritize the laws, if at all the bills, if at all the matters that are touching on women and the issue of femicide, Mr. Speaker. I also want to take this opportunity to pass my condolences to the family and friends of the late Charles Ouda. Charles Ouda is, Mr. Speaker, you know, the creative economy is not really, the creative industry, we don't really celebrate them enough, Mr. Speaker. And I think one of the things that we should do this session is remember that we have artists who are struggling to be hustlers out there, who are struggling to earn a living and to entertain us, Mr. Speaker. And I think it's time that we also try and legislate and have policies around how we send off our artists. So I take this opportunity to pass my condolences to the family and friends of Charles Ouda. And as we mourn with them on Thursday, I want to invite all the senators to come to the wake that we have for Charles Ouda. He was actually in one of my musical theater shows. Before I was a senator, I was in the creative industry. So this is a space that I hold dearly. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of Kisii, I think we all agree that devolution must work. Devolution must work in all 47 counties. And the purpose of having those county assemblies is so that they can play oversight, Mr. Speaker. And if the members of county assembly of the Kisii County have interrogated and found a reason to impeach any person, whether the governor or the deputy governor, Mr. Speaker, it is their right and it is their duty. And we hope that the devolution committee in the Senate is going to intervene on this matter and try to see that in Kisii County, we actually have devolution working, Mr. Speaker. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the issues are with the deputy governor, Mr. Speaker. But let no one tell the MCAs that it is not their duty or their right. They must interrogate and they must play oversight. And if they think that the deputy governor has done something contrary to the Constitution and should be impeached, Mr. Speaker, that is actually the duty of the MCAs. So I come from Kisii County, Mr. Speaker, and I want to say that we want to see that county working. We want to see development, and we want to be able to understand that the governor is working, the deputy governor is working, and all the elected leaders, including the members of county assembly who are doing their work in oversighting the county government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. And I wish my members a very good and fruitful session. Thank you.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, I support. Our team in House Business Committee, I think, has done well, and I wish to encourage them to continue doing well. Even as I do so, Mr. Speaker, allow me first to condole with the family of Kevin Kiptum. Mr. Speaker, that's a loss to the entire nation, not just to the families, and I hope that as a country we will show our appreciation by according Mr. Kiptum a state send-off. Mr. Speaker, even as the House Business Committee convenes, I want to suggest 3 things, Mr. Speaker. I would want to suggest that in line with the mandate of the Senate, that the House Business Committee consider prioritizing the bills that have been put in place to strengthen devolution. Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of confusion. We have a lot of areas that have not properly gelled in the last 13 years of devolution. And it is this House that has the primary mandate to ensure that we work on those laws. We need to bring laws, for instance, to strengthen issues around relationships between governors and deputy governors. We need to bring laws that can strengthen intergovernmental relations to ensure better operation between national and county governments versus, across county governments. We need to strengthen issues relating to regional economic blocks and many other laws. This House will be assessed on how well it delivers on its function in Article 96. So I urge the House Business Committee to deliberately look at what we have as business and to deliberately encourage us to do that which will better devolution as we move on. Mr. Speaker, as we do so, I also want to ask that this House and the National Assembly also reimagine the best way we can pass laws without having those laws to be stopped in the courts. Mr. Speaker, in the last session, there are a few laws which came, and because they had been passed in the National Assembly, we hurried with those laws to pass them as they were, even with unconstitutional provisions, because someone was in a hurry to have those laws to pass. I'm suggesting that as both houses, we must reimagine a technical consultative process that can ensure if government or the majority are in a hurry to pass a law, that we can possibly consider technical consultations before that bill is tabled, so that if we are planning to pass it as was passed in the National Assembly, at least some technical people will have put in to ensure that the matters devolution, matters constitutional have been protected. We have a mediation committee. We can reimagine and also have a consultative technical team committee that can ensure we pass laws much faster. Mr. Speaker, I also want to finally ask that the Senate House Business Committee also work for the entire Senate. We have 3 functions, that's representation, oversight, and representation, oversight, and legislation. Mr. Speaker, we oversight as the entire House of 67. I want to ask the House Business Committee to ensure that matters oversight by senators in the Senate are not discriminatory against nominated senators. So I ask that as they meet, that the issue of oversight will be looked at to acknowledge that nominated senators are equal senators and they actually engage in oversight like other senators. So we will want the House Business Committee to treat all members the same. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wafula. Senator Wafula.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa nafasi hii. Kwanza ni kuwasabahi maseneta wenzangu na kushukuru Mungu kuvuka mwaka mpya na kuwatarajia kwamba mwaka utakuwa wa ufanisi. Mheshimiwa Spika, langu ni kuhimiza jumba la Senate kwamba mwaka huu uwe mwaka wa mabadiliko katika utunzi wetu wa sheria. Wakulima humu nchini, Mheshimiwa Spika, wanatarajia kwamba Senate litapitisha miswada na kanuni na sheria ambazo zitawezesha wao kunufaika na jasho lao. Mheshimiwa Spika, walimu katika nchi ya Kenya vile vile wanatazamia jumba la Senate kusimama na wao na kuhakikisha kwamba mfumo wa elimu, mazingira yao na wanafunzi yanapewa kipaumbele. Kile ninachosema Mheshimiwa Spika, mwaka uliopita tulikuwa na mchakato kana kwamba kuna mashine ya kusaga unga na wengi wa maseneta walikuwa wanapiga tinga. Naomba tubadilishe mfumo ili Wakenya wawe wakunufaika na sheria na chochote tunachofanya hapa Senate. Changamoto za manaibu wa gavana, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni donda sugu kule Trans Nzoia, Kisii na maeneo mengi humu nchini. Lazima jumba la Senate litunge sheria na kanuni kuhakikisha kwamba gavana na naibu wake wawe kama chanda na pete. Iwapo mtu amechoka na naibu wake, wote wafunge virago na waende nyumbani. Haiwezekani mmoja akishapata mamlaka anamgeuka mwenzie kwa sababu ameona kitita cha fedha. Naomba jumba la Senate lisimame, litambulike, lionekane kwamba litalinda na kuhakikisha kwamba ugatuzi unatambulika kote nchini. Na mwisho, mimi kama kijana kiongozi chipukizi ni kuomba Senate lisimame na vijana wa nchi ya Kenya. Kanuni tunazotunga, sheria tunazotunga, nafasi za kazi zinazopeanwa katika nchi ya Kenya, lazima vijana wapewe kipaumbele kwa sababu hao ndio uti wa serikali na siku zijazo. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na kuwatakia mwaka mpya wenye mafanikio.
Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to join my colleagues to welcome back members to this House. I stand here to oppose this list, simply because Jubilee, being a third largest political party, has been locked out in many committees. And I think that will be a debate for another day. Mr. Speaker, the second point I want, Mr. Speaker, I wish you could listen to me. Senator Sifuna, why are you disrupting, Speaker? And I wanted him to hear a very serious point I was raising. Mr. Speaker, I'm opposing this list simply because Jubilee is not represented. And we are going to bring a motion to this House to discuss matters of Jubilee in this House. Number two, Mr. Speaker, now that we have been given oversight funding, I remember 2013 we had implementation committee in this House, but unfortunately it was removed. Now that we have oversight, we must be able to come up with a committee that is going to look at issues of oversight. Mr. Speaker, for some of us who have gone to the ground, there is so much challenge to the senators and incitement and politicizing the issues of oversight. And again, you will see that some of the governors, you write to them to give information, they are refusing. We must have a body that is going to look at issues of oversight in this Senate. And again, we are supposed to do report after oversight. How are we going to deal with those reports? Are matters that this Senate needs to discuss and come up with a solution. I thank you.
Senator Miraj.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kuweza kunipa fursa hii dhahabia na mimi niweze kuunga mkono kamati ambayo imeundwa kuweza kusimamia mipango ya bunge hili. Pili, Bwana Spika, ningependa pia mimi kutuma salamu zangu za rambirambi kwa familia ya kijana ambaye si tu wa Bonde la Ufa bali aliweza kupeperusha bendera ya taifa letu la Kenya. Na kwa sababu ni kijana wa miaka 24, ningefurahi zaidi ningeona kwamba bendera ya Kenya leo hii inapeperushwa nusu mlingoti kwa heshima yake. Seneta mwenzangu Bwana Spika Fatuma Dulo ameongelea masuala ya kubuniwa kwa kamati ya kuangalia implementation ya yale ambayo tunayapitisha katika ripoti zetu. Mwaka ulipopinduka, Bwana Spika, niliweza kumpigia simu karani wa bunge hili Bwana Nyegene, na nikaomba kuweza kuonyeshwa njia ya mimi kuleta mswada wa ili kamati hiyo iweze kubuniwa tena, maana niliarifiwa kwamba katika bunge la pili la 2013 kamati kama hiyo ilikuwepo na mwenyekiti wake alikuwa Senator James Orengo ambaye leo hii ni gavana. Na miongoni mwa sababu zangu za kuomba bunge hili iweze kuregesha kamati kama hiyo ni kwa sababu ya ripoti kama ile ya Buxton Estate. Tulipeana mapendekezo yaweze kuregesha wale waliokuwa wakaazi wa eneo lile, lakini kwa sababu sheria imetufunga mkono, Bwana Spika, hatuwezi kufuatilia beyond mapendekezo ambayo tumepeana. Kwa hivyo ningependa sana itakapokuja mswada kama ule muweze kuniunga mkono ili tuweze kuunda kamati ya kuweza kufuatilia zile ripoti ambazo tunaziandika katika bunge hili. Tatu, Bwana Spika, ukiweza kuangalia macho yako katika bunge hili, utaona karibu kina mama sote tumevaa nguo nyeusi, na tumevaa hizi nguo nyeusi tukiashiria kusimama na yale mashirika yasiyo ya kiserikali ambayo yamekuwa yakipiga kelele kuhusiana na wale watoto wa kike ambao wameuliwa kiholela holela tu kwa sababu ni wanawake. Kauli yangu mbiu ni kwa vijana na wazee, Bwana Spika, kuambia ya kwamba sisi wanawake kweli tuna mapungufu yetu kama wanadamu, lakini mtoto wa kike hapigwi hata kuuawa. Ukitaka kupiga mtoto wa kike, nunua kanga umpige na upande wa kanga. Inawezekana kweli kuna makosa ya hapa na pale, lakini haimaanishi uweze kuangamiza na kumaliza maisha ya mtoto wa kike. Kwa hivyo ningependa ndugu zangu maseneta wa bunge wa seneti wa kiume muweze kusimama na sisi, kwa sababu ukifuga nyoka leo ataua mtoto wa kike, kesho atakuja pia ataua mtoto wako wa kiume. Kwa hayo mengi, Bwana Spika, asante na niwatakie heri na fanaka za mwaka huu wa 2024, na niwashukuru pia wale vigogo walionitangulia kwa kuweza kunishika mkono hadi kupendekeza miswada mitatu ambao mmoja wao uko katika nafasi ya pili ya second reading. Niwaombe viongozi wenzangu, mswada wa kumsimamia mtoto wa kike arudi shule ni mswada ambao utaondosha nchi yetu katika umaskini, kwa sababu itampa fursa yule mtoto ambaye ametelekezwa katika masomo yake kupata fursa ya pili, kuondosha uchochole katika jamii yake. Kwa hivyo nawaomba tutakaporudi muweze kupitisha mswada wa Child and Protection of Parents, Child Parents Bill. Asanteni sana, Mwenyezi Mungu awabariki.
Senator Oburu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to wish you a very, very happy New Year, Mr. Speaker, and your family, and a very, very prosperous New Year. I would also like to do the same to my fellow members of the Senate. I wish them a very, very prosperous New Year. Mr. Speaker, as we start the session, and we are today approving the list of the House Business Committee, Mr. Speaker, I just want us to reflect a little on some of the things which transpired and which I personally would not like to see again. Mr. Speaker, in the last Parliament, we passed quite a number of bills. Some of them were signed into law. You said some of them are stuck in the National Assembly. And Mr. Speaker, there were also so many motions passed, and there were many questions answered. And Mr. Speaker, I really appreciate the amount of work which was done by this Senate. I was a member of the East African Legislative Assembly, Mr. Speaker, and we did not do as much work as we do in the Senate here. There we had a different type of system, and we did work which was completely different, but it was not as much as what I have experienced here in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, there's one issue which I would not like to see repeated, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Halwale was speaking about the governors trying to teach us what to do, or even to tell us, ask us to support them in some issues. But Mr. Speaker, it is our responsibility to support the county governments. It is our responsibility to protect them. And Mr. Speaker, that includes propelling their issues. And Mr. Speaker, when it comes to allocation of revenue, I would have thought that members of the Senate would be the first to support proposals, particularly from the Revenue Allocation Commission, and also based on the rationality which was given to us here, Mr. Speaker, but we opposed it, and I don't want the debate to open again, but I hope that we shall not again continue with the same trend of not supporting the devolved units like the county governments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also saw something which happened last time, which I would not like to see repeated again. Mr. Speaker, there was a situation where a chairman of a committee, and I don't want to say which committee, Mr. Speaker, came here in the morning, presented to us a detailed report of a committee which they had worked on for more than 3 months. Mr. Speaker, we stood up and contributed and supported the chairman. And then in the afternoon, Mr. Speaker, the same chairman comes up and withdraws the same report, which was not his report. It was a report of a committee. Mr. Speaker, perhaps we shall improve and we shall not see such a situation again. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I support the proposed committee which has been proposed here, and I wish everybody a very, very successful deliberation in this new session. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kinyua.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii. Kwanza mwanzo nataka kuungana na wenzangu kutakia kutuma risala zangu za rambirambi kwa familia ya mwanariadha Kelvin ambaye aliaga dunia. Bwana Spika, mswada huu wa kamati ya shughuli katika bunge naunga mkono kwa sababu maseneta walioko katika kamati hii ni maseneta ambao kwa wakati ule mwingine walikuwa bado ni wao. Kwa hivyo ni watu ambao wako na uzoefu, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, nimemsikiza seneta wa Taita, Seneta Mungatana, Bwana Spika, akisema ya kwamba ni vizuri tuwe na kamati ambayo itakuwa ikitekeleza majukumu ambayo ama mapendekezo ambayo yameletwa na kamati zingine, Bwana Spika. Na hilo ninaona ni jambo zuri kabisa, Bwana Spika, kwa sababu mapendekezo yanayoletwa na kamati, na sio kamati tu, Bwana Spika, hata na bunge hili yanabaki kuwa tu ni mapendekezo, Bwana Spika, ambayo hayashughulikiwi, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo, Bwana Spika, mimi nataka kukubaliana na yeye, na pengine wakati huu kwa sababu tayari tumeanza na mwanzo mzuri, pengine itakuwa ni jambo zuri likishughulikiwa, Bwana Spika, na Seneti itaonekana sio tu mapendekezo inafanya, lakini vile vile tunayatekeleza yale mapendekezo. Bwana Spika, vile vile nachukua fursa hii kuwatakia mwaka mpya wenye mafanikio maseneta wote, na vile vile niwatakie watu wa Laikipia mwaka mpya wenye mafanikio, na vile vile niungane na maseneta kukutakia mwaka mpya hata wewe ulio na mafanikio, na nashukuru.
Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to also wish my colleagues Happy New Year. It's good to see all of you, including you, Mr. Speaker. And it's quite telling that this is one of a few committees where there's very little contestation. I don't see as much interest from members to be part of this committee as others. And I was just asking my colleagues who have served with me on that committee in the previous session, Mr. Speaker, it could be because this is one of those committees in this House that does not have the usual trappings and perks of other committees. There are no trips for the Senate Business Committee. In fact, Mr. Speaker, there are no perks that I am aware of. And this is one of those committees that cannot be adjourned for lack of quorum. So if you are a member of this committee, you must show up for meetings of this committee. And I suspect that is why the interest is not as high as the impending committee on impeachment of the governor of Kisii County that I've had here. Mr. Speaker, it has been the privilege of my life, my short life in this House, to serve on the SBC. I know just what awaits us in terms of scheduling business for this House. We have struggled with the many requests we got from members when it came to instances, for instance, on question time to cabinet secretaries. And I know now that the minority side also fully participates on this issue of questioning cabinet secretaries before this House. There's going to be an overwhelming number of requests for questions to put to cabinet secretaries. I can only hope that this House, through its leadership, can communicate to the CSS that we would expect full, cooperation from these cabinet secretaries for us to be able to execute the business of the House. Mr. Speaker, I may be the only one, but every time you flip a calendar, the expectation is that you will turn a new leaf in your life also. My expectation during this session was to see the best side of my colleagues here. But some of the comments that have already gone ahead have dampened my spirit and my expectation that some of my colleagues return the very same people we said goodbye to in December. In the sort of debate that we're going to have here, Mr. Speaker, I was hoping to see a change, that we are new people, that we would give opportunity to new ideas and new thoughts, that we will listen to each other better, that we will not use this opportunity to rile up each other. If, for instance, there is a critical matter, such as a matter that was involving both sides of a political divide as a bipartisan report, some of the comments that I have heard from my colleagues leave me very wary of what we can expect in this session. And I know the majority leader must have been as offended as I have been by some of the comments directed at a committee that he served very ably and was able to midwife a child under very difficult political circumstances. Mr. Speaker, also last year we had cautioned that as a House we should not be preempting our own business, so that people should not be anticipating debate and making comments that lend themselves to some of the attacks we have received as a House, that matters come here when there is already a predetermined outcome. It has broken my heart, Mr. Speaker, for people to speak about business that might come before this House in a manner that suggests that decisions have already been reached. Even before we are seized of those matters, it is quite heartbreaking that indeed some people turn the calendars in their houses, but they never turn a new leaf in their own lives and in their own conduct as elected leaders. Mr. Speaker, I want to reiterate my commitment as a member of this, proposed member of this committee, that in fact, if approved by this House, I will dedicate my time as required to be able to conduct the business of the SBC and some of the things that, because members, the proposed members have not gotten to speak, ordinarily we shouldn't speak, is that, Mr. Speaker, we make other sacrifices to be members of the Senate Business Committee. You have seen in other instances, members argue, oh, so-and-so is on 4 committees, so has too many committees, and they start with the SBC as if it is a regular committee. So then you hear people saying, no, Sifuna must now leave the Energy Committee, he must now concentrate fully on the SBC, with all its, lack of the perks that I have described here. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that my colleagues who have served on that committee in the previous session have given their best in the service of this House, and I am sure that their commitment is unwavering for us to be able to deliver the mandate of this House. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, yesterday I was at a burial, and the preacher who gave the preaching there said something profound to me, that life at its best is very, very short. Mr. Speaker, I could not believe when I heard the news about Kelvin Kiptum, that just when his career was taking off, just when he was becoming a global brand, just when everything looked up for him, we lost that young man in the most tragic of circumstances. I want to also take this opportunity on my own behalf of my family, on behalf of the ODM party, for which I am the SG, to condole with the family of Kelvin Kiptum and to just say that we pray that God rests his soul in eternal peace. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mundegi.
Asante Bwana Spika, yangu naunga mkono kwa wale watu wamechaguliwa ndio waweze kutuongoza, na pia nawashukuru kwa ile kazi walifanya mwaka jana. Kwa hivyo tunajua hata mwaka huu kama walifanya percentage kidogo, sasa wataongezea na sisi tutakuwa tukifanya kazi pamoja. Ya pili, naunga mkono spika wetu na pia maseneta wote na wafanyikazi na kiraka na wafanyikazi wako kwa ile kazi mlifanya mwaka jana, na pia tuliko na hakika hata mwaka huu tutafanya kazi pamoja ndio tuweze kupandilisha nchi yetu ya Kenya. Mambo ya kazi, tunajua senators, sisi mazungumzo yetu huwa tunazungumza juu ya devolution, na tunajua pesa zile tulipatia mangavana mwaka jana ni kama wakati tumeenda masinani ni kama kulikuwa na shida nyingi sana. Ningeomba tu tuweze kuangalia mwaka huu tuweze kuona vile kaunti nyingi zitaweza kuongezwa hizo pesa juu ya mambo ya elimu, mambo ya afya na mambo ya agriculture na department zile zingine. Ya pili ni mambo ambaye tunasikia deputy ametimuliwa, na pia tunajua ni kama mwaka jana vile tulikuwa tumesikia deputy wa Kisumu alikuwa ametimuliwa. Ningeomba wale watu wataenda kuangalia maneno waweze kuangalia na njia ile inafaa, kwa sababu tunajua governor ndiye anakuanga na mambo ya pesa, na sasa tunasikia deputy ndiye anatimuliwa. Kwa hiyo ningeomba wale wataangalia hiyo maneno waangalie na njia ile inafaa. Ya mwisho naongea mambo kuhusu pombe na dawa za kulevya. Watu wengi wamejua katika Kenya vijana wetu wamepotea, kazi yao ni kukunywa pombe na dawa za kulevya na vitu zingine. Unakuta inakuwa nchi yetu inaendelea kusoroteka juu ya hao vijana. Nikikumbusha Senate, nakumbusha nyinyi wiki jana huko Kirinyaga vijana wetu na kina mama walikufa juu ya hiyo pombe. Kwa hiyo mwaka huu ningeomba pia Senate ikienda kupitisha pesa tuweze kuona kama kuna pesa itatengwa, kila county iweze kuwa na pesa ya kuweza kufunza hao watu na pia kuwaonyesha njia ile inafaa. Asante. Kwa hivyo naunga mkono Bwana Speaker. Ni mimi Senator wa Embu County ambaye ni deputy party leader wa Democratic Party. Asante.
Now, honorable senators, kindly avoid commenting on the matter touching on the impeachment of the deputy governor, because doing so is anticipating debate. Senator Eddie Okech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Happy New Year to you and all the members of the House. Mine is actually a very short comment. I want my brother and also my leader, Senator Sifuna, not to worry about a few voices that might not have appreciated the work that this committee has done in the first session. Indeed, Martin Luther King did say that if you are a street sweeper, just sweep the street so well that even if there's nobody who can be able to acknowledge on earth, the angels in heaven will see that the work that you've done has been very nice and will appreciate you. I want to say categorically that this particular committee and the individuals who have been in this committee in the first session, Mr. Speaker, have done amazing job. I mean, my experience in the House in that first session, that I do actually believe that has been by large because of this committee. And the work that this committee did in the first session, and the individuals, of course, that are still there, including Sifuna, was amazing. I think that this year, you will do better. It doesn't mean that last year was bad or last session was bad. And I just wanted to urge that primarily the pride of our labor in this House is that we want to make laws. I think that's the biggest legacy that if you leave this house sometimes, or if you are much older and bent double, you can be able to remember that indeed I did pass laws. I know that last year the committee did try to adjust on the time for statements so that you could give more room to the passing of bills. But indeed this year, I hope that I want to wish you the courage to even find some more adventurous ways to be able to ensure that we can be able to pass, to deliberate on more bills. I think that there is, from what you talked about, Mr. Speaker, it seems like there's a bulk of bills that have not been addressed in this House. That will be the only gap that I'm seeing, but I support this committee. It has got very serious, capable leaders who have been within this House, starting from Senator Roba, who has been the chair of Finance and Budget, as well as my dear sister, Senator Mutinda, who is also the vice chair there. I've had a very amazing time working with them in those committees, and they've done a great job. We've always seen the grit and the wisdom of the Wakili, Hillary, when he takes, that chair when you're not there, Mr. Speaker, doing an amazing job. I mean, I can talk about all these different individuals, and they're just amazing individuals. So we wish you well this year. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, let me also take my humble time to actually pass my deepest condolences and share in this pain of the loss of Kelvin Kiptum. Mr. Speaker, I can't start talking about how sad I feel about this loss, because some of us young people who have been motivated by seeing how much commitment and how much hard work goes to our athletes in this country. I remember when Kipchoge, Eliud, was attempting to do a sub-2, Mr. Speaker, that entire day we as young people camped at KICC to be able to witness this great man making history. And this year, one of my biggest delights for this year, and one of the things I wanted to see was somebody doing it actually in official time. And we really were hoping that Kevin would bring this home to the country. And therefore, it's a very, very painful experience that I cannot explain, not only in the DNA of the nation, but even to the family. But in the same weight, Mr. Speaker, I don't want us to forget to take this humble opportunity also to say sorry to the family of his coach, Mr. Akizimana, who was a Rwandese, by citizenship, but actually did dedicate his time, rising just recently to the elite coaching levels in the athletic world. I think that this House cannot forget him, because indeed he was the biggest partner to Kevin and also gave so much to this country. And I want to take this opportunity as a senator in Kenya to also pass our deepest condolences and share in the pain of his family in Rwanda, as well as the Rwandese Athletic Federation, for that big loss that they also experience. And I hope that as a country, we will stand with both of them together, because it is on their shoulders that this country prides in the kind of fame that they have given us. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to this session, and I hope that we'll give the country the best with the little time that we might have in this House this year. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, first and foremost, I think I want to thank God for giving us the opportunity to come back again here. I can see there are a lot of bright faces here. We are all safe and sound. To Honorable Speaker, this House has the responsibility to oversee devolution. If there's no devolution, I think Senate will have not been there. And as it is today, and as chairman of the devolution committee, devolution now is actually under threat from two issues, but mainly two issues. One is that, there's a runaway corruption that is actually invested within the counties. And for sure, if we just keep our eyes closed, then I think devolution will not be able to work as it is, and it will not be able to achieve what we want to achieve. And therefore, that now the Senate has received the oversight funds, at least something has been received, first tranche. I want to ask my colleagues that this time we need to enhance the oversight. I think, Honorable Speaker, I will suggest that we form what we call some kind of regional approach, where the senators from certain regions can collaborate with the little money they have and work as a team. I think that's the time we can be able to deliver a better result than running around individually. Otherwise, I think we will not be able to save devolution. Two, devolution is actually under threat because of, the funds are not being released on time. As we talk now, the last time the governors received their money, the counties, I think it was the one of October or September. There's a lot of backlog in payment. The staff are paid from banks. And as you're aware now, the interest rate for banks have now increased. And therefore, the counties are facing a lot of challenges. Despite the corruption going on, but of course, the delay is actually causing unnecessarily due sufferings, especially for the county to deliver. Two, I think the finance committee chair is here. The additional fund has not up to now been released. The grants have not been released. I think this House has took this thing serious, and we need to release that fund so that these counties can work and deliver. Honorable Speaker, we are now in the third session, the third year almost. What's remaining another 3 years, so for us to deliver. So we need, I think, to pull up our socks, to work extra mile, so that we can be able to deliver and see the strength, devolution work is strengthened. That because there's so many other bendy bills, we also need to follow up on those bendy bills in every county, and to see that those people who give services to goods and services to the counties receive their money, because many businessmen are going out of business because their money has not been paid in time. There are others missing for the last 10 years. Some of them have gone out of business, and therefore, I want us actually to take that one seriously also, and see that Kenyans are paid their money, because they have worked hard for their money. They are businessmen, and the businessmen actually have been accused. One other thing is, Honorable Speaker, I think in the last 2 sessions, there are so many bending and done businesses in this House. Especially bills, almost 40 bills have not been passed. Out of maybe 52 or 50, I don't know how many there are. Therefore, and I think the problem is that there are too many statements. Too many statements, Honorable Speaker. I will also suggest the House Business Committee should prioritize the bills this time around. Honorable Speaker, can you protect us, please? I think the majority leader is interrupting my
Majority
time.
Leader, kindly consult a Lawton. Allow the Senator Abbas to conclude.
I'll finish. So, Honorable Speaker, what I'm saying is, I think much of our time is being consumed by statements. You are seeing 20 statements being made, and most of them are interrelated. So I think I would request the House Business to take the matter serious and to limit the statements. This time around, we must be able to complete our bills. With those few remarks, I want to support the bill. Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion. And Mr. Speaker, Standing Order 194 is really very clear as to the responsibility of the House Business Committee. And Mr. Speaker, it is therefore true that this committee is critical in performance of the functions of this House. And I would like to really thank this membership, because in this second session, Mr. Speaker, they have been able to do a very commendable job. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, even as you proceed now in this session, they will continue to do exactly what you've done even in the previous session. Mr. Speaker, I have two issues I would want to urge the committee to consider. There has been a debate, Mr. Speaker, whether we should have the committee on implementation. Mr. Speaker, in the other house, you remember when you served with you in the National Assembly, we have a committee on implementation to ensure resolutions of the House are actually implemented by the government. In this Senate, Mr. Speaker, there has been a discussion whether we should have one. Mr. Speaker, I strongly recommend to the House Business Committee to consider having these, our standing orders amended, so that we have a committee on implementation. Mr. Speaker, Senate should not act in vain. We should be able to ensure that whatever we pass here in terms of resolution are actually acted upon by the relevant state agencies and so on. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is the regional economic blocks, which in my view, Mr. Speaker, plays a critical role in ensuring that counties cooperate together and be able to share in their growth economically. It enhances opportunities for employment. And Mr. Speaker, what is lacking from where I sit is there is no legal framework to ensure that those economic blocks work very well. I think it is important for this House, Mr. Speaker, in this session, and this goes to the chairman, I think he has left, on devolution, so that at least to ensure that these economic blocks, Mr. Speaker, are able to work and therefore establish legal framework that is able to give them the legal capacity to proceed. Finally, Mr. Speaker, this House should be able also to look at some of the critical issues affecting the counties. Mr. Speaker, insecurity in this country is affecting 7 counties, Mr. Speaker. Cattle rustling, banditry, expansion, and so on, Mr. Speaker. So that today, Mr. Speaker, there are 7 counties in this country: Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, Turkana, West Pokot, Isiolo, Marsabit, and so on, Mr. Speaker, where there is no peace enjoyed by the population. So this House, Mr. Speaker, I will be moving a motion, and I know the House Business Committee will approve, I hope so that, Mr. Speaker, we discuss this issue extensively as a House, so that we have this, our people live in peace, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion, and I want to wish this team well as they begin this session. Mr. Speaker, allow me to finally also join my colleagues in expressing my condolences to the family of Kevin Kiptum for the unfortunate demise of that very young man, and we say sorry to his family and this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the onset, I arise to support the motion for nomination of the members to serve in the Senate Business Committee, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, these are continuing members. They served in the first session, second session, and now the third session. Basically, Senate will not need to spend resources on capacity building, on training, Honorable Speaker, because they already have experience, they have been trained. Honorable Speaker, finally, the main reason why I wanted to speak is on behalf of the great people of Elgeyo Marakwet County, my family, I wish to convey my condolences to the family of Kelvin Kiptum. Kiptum was from Elgeyo Marakwet County, Kipsamoa village, Chepkoria location. This was a very young, promising man who ran last year Chicago Marathon in 2 hours and 35 seconds. Basically, we thought this year he was going to run under 2 hours, Honorable Speaker, but it's unfortunate that he passed on Sunday night through a road accident, Honorable Speaker. And as the senator, I wish to convey our condolences both to his family, relatives, the great people of Elgeyo-Marakwet County, and Kenyans at large, and also the family of his coach in Rwanda and both in Kenya, Honorable Speaker. It's unfortunate that this is a young man who was going to go very far. He ran his first race 2018 on a borrowed shoes, Honorable Speaker. And he was going to be a great man, but because it has happened, we don't have a choice. Ours is to accept that it was God's will at this particular time. The family is very young, and I urge the government of Kenya Kwanza to take to give him a good state burial, Honorable Speaker. I thank also the CS for Sports and Youth because he was there yesterday to condole with us, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I believe tomorrow we'll have a motion on this particular issue. I don't want to take much time because I believe the Senate Business Committee wants to go and meet and set up business for us from tomorrow onwards. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Nyamu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am very excited to be in this third session of this Senate proceedings. And Mr. Speaker, the recess that we have just had has been one of the most fulfilling for me because I got to interact with the real issues that my people in Nairobi are facing. I had the opportunity to have Christmas with children in Mathare and widows of Korogosho and young mothers, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of the year, my foundation was privileged to offer full secondary school education scholarship to the needy. And Mr. Speaker, what that presented for me is the glaring inequality that presents itself in the lack of free secondary education, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is very heartbreaking that even today, to date as we speak, we have students, bright students who did exemplarily well in school, but have not yet reported to school because they are not able to afford, or their parents are not able to afford the demands that come with secondary school education, and that includes the uniform, the tuition fees, and all that, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, even if we chose, all of us here today, to sponsor 20, 50 students, it will still not be enough. It will still not be sufficient. And so, Mr. Speaker, as a country, as a leadership, we have failed the students of this country, and I am looking forward to this Senate, this session, coming up with lasting solutions through bills, Mr. Speaker, through influence of policy, so that we can give all children an opportunity to have an education, because, Mr. Speaker, all of us, if not most of us here, are products of education. And so the least we can do, Mr. Speaker, we can shelve everything else, but let us have all the children of Kenya educated, no matter the background and no matter where they come from. And Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to join the entire country in mourning the very painful death of Master Kelvin Kiptum, who lost his life in a tragic accident. And as a people of Kenya, we have lost part of our story. We have lost part of our history because his potential we didn't get to experience what he was as a gift to us. And so to the family and to the entire country, I offer my deepest condolences and those of my family. And as for the members of the SBC, I have full confidence in them. They are all very skilled senators. They are all very able. We support you, and we support the work that you have done for us so far and I support another mandate for you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader, proceed to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to thank my colleagues who have taken time to share their thoughts on this motion to set up the Senate Business Committee for the third session of this Senate, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleagues for the things that they've raised during debate. Many issues, Mr. Speaker, those that are concerned, many broadly support the team and appreciate the work that our SBC has done. Of course, I have listened to the concerns of the members of the Jubilee Party. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, they are not here. I'm sure there are better avenues they can use, Mr. Speaker, and the standing orders provide for ways which they can address the challenge and the situation they presently find themselves in, Mr. Speaker. By and large, Mr. Speaker, many of our colleagues appreciate the important role of SBC, especially in scheduling business and ensuring that we have business to transact as a house, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join also my colleagues in passing tribute to the world record holder, the departed friend, Kelvin Kiptum, together with his coach, who unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, met their demise 2 nights ago. As a country, we are in mourning, Mr. Speaker. This young man had a life full of promise. There was a great career ahead of him. Many of us who are fans of athletics were looking forward actually to the duel in Paris later on this year during the Olympics between him and Eliud Kipchoge, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate that as fate would have it, Kelvin will not be there. Of course, there are lessons that we learn, but of course, Mr. Speaker, we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we can do? So many of our athletes have departed in this particular way. Many of them world beaters. Some of them were lucky to survive. You'd remember, I think, Rudisha, 2 or 3, almost at the prime of his career also, had a similar incident, and in fact, ended his career with an injury from which he never recovered from, Mr. Speaker. And so many of these young athletes. And it points out to a lack, Mr. Speaker, perhaps of maybe mentorship or something that you could do to these young people that do so much for us as a country, yet we pay so little to. And many times we just remember them when they have passed on, like we have seen. You remember of Samuel Wanjiro, Mr. Speaker, met his death in almost similar circumstances through an accident, Mr. Speaker, that couldn't be explained. It's unfortunate. Though we are blessed with abundant talent as a country, Mr. Speaker, there is a lesson therein for us, that there is a lot more that we need to do other than just celebrate and tweet and take pictures with our stars when they return from victory. We need to invest in them as well. There are many things that Kenyans are saying, and we must learn to listen. The Minister for Sports, I saw he visited the home of Kiptum yesterday, but then we look forward to hearing what is it that we as a country have learned over time, because this is not the first athlete at the peak of their career that we have lost. You remember many of them have found themselves even in love triangles and many such kind of things, Mr. Speaker, and have ended their life at very young age, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to say fare thee well, Kelvin. We know that we would have wished to have you longer. I was certain, as a fan of athletics, Mr. Speaker, that this is a gentleman who was going actually to do the sub-2 in a competitive marathon. And I thought that was going to happen in this year's Olympic, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate, but such is the fate of man, Mr. Speaker. Many are our plans, but unfortunately not all of them come to pass. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I wish to urge my colleagues that we take our work as a Senate seriously. Mr. Speaker, last week I had the opportunity to address a gathering of the directorate, of the staff of the directorate of the Speaker's office. And there were certain very grim statistics that were read out to us. And I wish I had mentioned this when the House was a bit more full when we began this session, that this is the first time that Senate has been adjourned close to 10 times for lack of quorum in the last 2 sessions. I hope we don't have a repeat of that, Mr. Speaker, because there's nobody who came to this House unopposed. All of us, Mr. Speaker, there was somebody we were competing with, somebody who felt that they deserve a better chance to represent the people that we represent here than ourselves. Ordinary citizens woke up early, queued, voted, and said that I put my trust in Eddie to speak for me, on my behalf in the Senate of the Republic. It cannot be then, Mr. Speaker, that that same Eddie cannot find just 3 hours on a single afternoon, 3 times a week, to come and speak on behalf of those people. I don't understand. I struggle, Mr. Speaker, to understand where people disappear to, such that, yes, of course, Eddie is an example. I must tell the people of Migori that I have seen many Migori senators, so to speak, and you are as fine as they come, Senator Eddie. I celebrate you because of your diligence and industry in this house. Every afternoon, you are among the very last people to leave this house. And I'd wish that many of our colleagues could take you from that and appreciate that this is a rare opportunity and a privilege, that thousands others wish to sit in this house and speak on behalf of residents. Yet, on many afternoons, we find ourselves less than 10 or 15 people in the house. It's my sincere hope that we will take our job a bit more seriously, Mr. Speaker. I hope we shall hold governors to account. Citizens are crying. Many of our counties are in very embarrassing situations, Mr. Speaker. And I look forward, Mr. Speaker, we have had this discussion about the current system of accountability that we have, where Auditor General sends a report to a particular committee, a report comes which we never discuss individually, and sometimes they're just lumped together, Mr. Speaker, and that becomes business as usual. We need to do better. Each of us must be able to look each other in the eye and speak to one another as colleague senators and say, I have a problem in my county. This is what the governor is doing. As my colleague senators, help me on behalf of my people. You know, in terms of health, in terms of ECDs, leakage of revenue. I want to propose, in fact, to you colleagues, that just in the same way that the national government is going cashless in its revenue collection, we need to push these governors to install systems also that are cashless. Many of the revenue leakage processes in our county, money is just being collected in sacks, and it is never banked, Mr. Speaker. Yet, we preside over the same, Mr. Speaker. If there is a year that the Senate of this republic must hold governors to account if you want to keep devolution alive in this country, then it is 2024, my dear brothers and sisters. If we do not do it, then Kenyans will give up and say they are all children of the same mother. So they may call themselves senators or governors, but they are one and the same. I don't believe that that is what is expected of us, Mr. Speaker. It is my hope that as a House, we shall rise up to the occasion and ensure that Kenyans enjoy the fruits of devolution as they had hoped in 2010 when they voted for these constitutions. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, honorable senators, pursuant to Standing Order 84-1, it is my determination that this matter does not affect counties, and therefore voting shall be by voice. I will therefore proceed to put the question. The pursuant to Standing Orders 190 and 199.3, the Senate approved the following senators nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee for the 3rd session. In addition to the Speaker of the Senate, who, pursuant to Standing Order 191, shall be the chairperson of the committee, the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip, and the Senate Minority Whip. And the following senators: Senator Robert Ali Ibrahim, EGH, MP, Senator Edwin Sifuna, MP, Senator Veronica Maina, MP, Senator Wakili Hilary Kiprotich Sigei, MP, Senator Maureen Tabitha Mutinda, MP, Senator Agnes Kavindu Muthama, MP, and lastly, Senator Munyehaji Faki, CBS, MP. Of that opinion, say aye. Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable senators, you may now arise. There being no other business on the order paper, the Senate stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 14th of February, 2024 at 9:30 a.m. The members of the Senate Business Committee, we proceed immediately to Committee Room 4 for our meeting. Thank you.
That marks the success of the first day of the Senate sitting this afternoon that has climaxed with members unanimously endorsing a 7-member committee that was proposed to sit in the Senate Business Committee. And those members are proceeding for a meeting to plan for business of tomorrow. The Senate will, the next sitting has adjourned until tomorrow 9:30 in the morning, when, according to the House standing orders, is when the House has the next sittings. Of importance during today's first session and first sitting under the third session is the aspect of matters to do with strengthening oversight role of the Senate. The Senate leader of the majority party has urged senators to ensure that they adhere to their role on which they were elected on, and ensure that there will be no quorum hitches under this third session. Members have also spoken to the aspect of the House prioritizing matters, various businesses brought in by members. Them is matters to do with bills and motion on matters security. That is the latest from the Senate. Allow me to hand you over back to the Broadcasting House for our normal programming.